Today we are making the ultimate prime rib, but instead of using smoking wood, we will be smoking this prime rib with fresh herbs. It's going to be amazing. Let me show you how to do it. This is the best prime rib I've ever made. Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and we are in for a treat today because I'm going to show you how to make what I think is the perfect Thanksgiving or holiday prime rib. Now, what are some of the challenges I've ran into cooking previous prime ribs? I've tried a couple where you end up slathering your ingredients or aromatics on the outside of the prime rib roast, but when you go to sear this, aromatics burn very easily, and you don't want to just be eating burnt aromatics, and so you get, either burnt flavor or very little flavor penetrating the meat. And so to solve that, we're going to be using my homemade beef tallow. I'll put a link down below if you haven't seen that video, but the punchline here is super simple. This is just leftover beef fat. I saved it up, rendered it down, infused it with garlic, rosemary, and thyme, and then we are going to inject that into this prime rib roast so that those subtle flavors are distributed evenly all the way through our prime rib and not subject to being on the outside where they could potentially burn. This blew me away on the first few experiments. I've tried this where I've injected a ribeye and or dry aged a steak in beef tallow, and I was shocked that some of these subtle Thanksgiving holiday flavors came through in our finished product, and I think it's going to work equally well on today's prime rib roast. The other thing that we're going to change is smoke. Now, smoke is one that is really easy to overdo. In fact, as I started a little over a decade ago, the number one mistake I made most often is over smoking everything. And poultry is really susceptible to this, but prime rib is probably number 2 on the list of being too easy to cross that line and go from something people will really enjoy to maybe only the strongest palates enjoy, and it's a little bit off-putting for you or maybe even your guests. And we don't want that. And so what we're going to be doing is, instead of smoking with wood, we're going to be smoking this with fresh aromatics, made up a couple of these bundles, and we're just going to throw those directly into our live coal fire and help add a great, gentle smoke aromatic smell to the outside of our steak before we get ready to sear it. So before I catch you up on the steps needed a day in advance to get ready for the cook that we're doing today, I just want to thank my channel members who suggested this topic. I just launched channel memberships. I go live with members to answer questions in a little bit more intimate way once a month, as well as have an opportunity to shape future content requests and asks. And this is a topic that came from that group, so thank you for the suggestion. If you'd like to join, there's plenty of room. Details are down below. Now, in terms of getting ready for today's cook, this is one, like normal, if you've heard me before, we want to dry brine. And so I'm going to make a slight tweak to my dry brine where I'm actually going to apply our truff hot sauce rub right now after we remove this from the package, pat it dry, and get a little bit of a smear for our rub. For our rub, this is one I've been using a lot lately. It's half salt, half pepper. But that salt is not just 50% Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. It's actually 25% Diamond Crystal Kosher, and the other 25% is Lowry's. After picking this tip up from Chud's, it's made a great impact on a lot of cooks that I've done since then. Outside of that, we're just going to add a little bit of garlic. So that's it, salt, pepper, garlic, and we're going to apply this liberally all over our prime rib roast, as well as scoring the fat cap so we can try and get some of that salt and seasoning deep into our prime rib roast before putting it in the refrigerator uncovered overnight so that it's ready to go for today's cook. So I'm going to be using my double duty soapstone method for today's cook, and if you haven't heard that, let me quickly explain. We're going to set up our Kamado Joe with our soapstone on the bottom level, where it's going to serve for the first part of a cook as our heat deflector, and then later on when we want to crank the heat up and go for a sear, it's going to be our sear surface. So it's serving both as a heat deflector as well as our sear surface, and by doing this you give it ample time to soak up tons of heat, which will really reduce the amount of time when we do want to get ready to sear. To set up our Joe, like always, I'm gonna start with an empty basket of charcoal. And today I'm gonna be using Fogo for our prime rib. I mentioned earlier, this is one that is really easy, to over smoke. And Fogo comes in on the lighter side, sweeter side of smoke. So even though it puts off a few more sparks than what I would like, you just can't beat it for things like prime rib or chicken or pizza, where you really want to dial down that smoke profile and flavor. So that's what gets the nod for today. Using my Grill Blazer grill gun, I'm going to start a fire as concentrated on the lower center part of our charcoal that I have oriented towards the back. I've done that since, again, air likes to move towards the back in a Kamado. So if you have a choice between left, right, front, back, the back is the most logical place to build our charcoal pile. This is quick and fast forward, but elapsed time is about 1 minute till I start to have some of these coals ash over. And then I'm just going to install the soapstone, our grids, close the dome, and make sure the bottom vent is all the way open and the top vent is all the way open until the dome starts to pass the hand test. That'll be somewhere the dial may read 300 to 400 degrees, even though we want to be landing between 270 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit for today's cook. So that's no problem. Wait till the dome is hot to the touch and we're ready to start dialing in our vents. So I pulled our prime rib out of the refrigerator just a little over an hour before getting started with today's cook, so it would have a chance to shake off some of that cold. And that, while our fire is coming up to temperature, is the perfect time to start injecting with our beef tallow. So since I've had this pre-made, I've just removed a couple spoonfuls that I can melt in the microwave, and then using my meat injector, just pull a couple syringefuls of this and make little pockets around our prime rib that we can inject. You'll see, if I can zoom in close enough, the prime rib actually starting to swell up as it's just pumping up with this garlic, rosemary, thyme infused beef tallow, which is going to be awesome. The other thing that we can do while we are waiting for the grill to come up to temperature is make our little smoke bundles. And so I've just got a couple of packages here, one of rosemary, one of thyme, one of sage, and I'm gonna break them into 4 equal parts and then combine that rosemary, sage, and thyme and tie a little knot around that so that we have our smoke bundles. I'll be adding these about every 20, 25, 30 minutes until they're fully turned into charcoal, and we are ready to continue adding a little bit more of that subtle, fresh, aromatic smell all the way through today's smoked prime rib. Okay, our grill is up to temperature, so time to start adjusting those vents. So I'm gonna go down to 1 finger on the bottom draft door, and since I want about 270, 300 degrees, I'm gonna go just inside the first line on the control tower top to let that start to stabilize. I'm also going to insert a meter probe so that we can track today's cook, and I'm gonna set that up for an internal temperature of 120 degrees Fahrenheit, since this roast will continue to carry over cook once we pull it off at 120, and I'm gonna let it continue to climb until it starts to settle back down while we're building heat to get ready to sear it. So that way we don't end up surpassing our final temperature. This is a lot like a truck going down a hill with momentum. The steeper the hill, the more momentum it has. This is just like cooking our steak. And so the hotter we're going or the faster we're climbing, you're going to have carry forward momentum. And I found around 270 to 300 degrees, almost without a doubt, we will gain 10 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even a little bit more, just in the rest. And so that's why I'm setting the alarm for 120 to make sure that we don't overcook our prime rib. So the meter is set up to be tracking the cook, so we are ready to get this on. And so as you can see on the setup here, we've got access to the coals, which makes it really easy to drop in one of our aromatic bundles. And we've got plenty of real estate to work with here on the Big Joe. And so I'm just gonna be going bone side down, as that will again act as another natural heat deflector. And we're gonna be relying on the convection as well as some of that radiant heat coming from our dome to cook our prime rib roast evenly. I'll rejoin you in a little bit when it gets closer to getting this off for the rest, and we transition into our hot and fast searing setup. All right, we're about the halfway point. We're 40 minutes in, 40 minutes to go, and this is looking great. I can already tell we're getting nice seasoning on our soapstone for our sear from some of that extra fat rendering out. So I'm going to now add another herb bundle. As I can see, these are completely black on the bottom. Get a high heat glove so I can show you here. But these are completely done, so we're no longer getting any aromatic smoke. So I'll just drop this right into those coals there. Perfect. Oh, it's been a while since I said this, but this is a smell-o-vision moment. That is awesome. All right, let's close it up. All right, our meter says our prime rib roast has hit 120 degrees, and that is looking pretty fantastic. So let's just get this off, let that rest, and we will get ready for inferno mode searing. Just gonna remove this grate, and we'll close the dome and open our vents to their maximum position. All right, our rest is complete, and to my surprise, maybe it's the cooler fall temperatures, we only ended up gaining 5 degrees, so we're sitting right at 125 degrees Fahrenheit, which for prime rib is totally fine by me. And so we've had our vents open for 15 minutes now, and we're still sitting at about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. But that is the beauty of our double duty soapstone method. That smoke all the way is just from the fat sitting on the soapstone. That's going to make a great sear surface. So I'm not worried about that. But here, let me show you using my Thermapen IR. The soapstone temperature, 630 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is going to be plenty hot enough to get a great sear. So let me reposition the camera and we'll get to inferno mode sear. All right, it's go time. So that is looking perfect. Let's let that rest another few minutes and be ready to do our taste test. All right, our herb smoked prime rib is looking amazing. So we are now exactly 2 hours on the button from when we first threw it on the grill, and that's including everything. Our indirect portion, resting about 15 minutes, searing, and then another 5-minute rest here before we get ready to slice it up. Let's do our best. So first, let's get this off of the bones or nature's heat shield, and then we can get a few slices to do our taste test. That just looks so incredibly juicy. The slightest touch and it's just pooling with juices. Don't worry, this is still 125, so this will bloom out a little bit more once the air hits it and give us that proper medium rare finish. Let me just get a slice and we'll do our taste test. All right, just like that, a minute later, this is bloomed out into an incredible, I'd say perfect looking prime rib. Edge to edge, even doneness. I can't even see where the crust starts and the medium rare begins. It's just like a perfect line. So let's get a slice and dig in. This is the best prime rib I've ever made. In fact, I've had the privilege of being at some amazing restaurants. This is the best prime rib I've had, period. I am so happy with how this came together in terms of our approach, from the salt dry brine and using nice complementary ingredients to our aromatic smoke bomb method that we're using today is so subtle yet so perfect. You know there's something there and you know aromatics are involved, but there is nothing putrid, strong, overpowering. It just all works together. And with our beef tallow injection, once your tongue gets a little bit of that taste on the outside, which is where that flavor profile of our crust and our smoke is, it is so subtle but balanced on our injection. you can just get a hint from that beef tallow, like a compound butter that is really working to enhance everything here. I'd be remiss if I didn't try another small piece with a little bit of finishing salt that always amps the flavor up just a little bit. So I have in this one Margarine smoked salt, which is one of my top 2 table salts. The other one is fleur de sel. Lights out. You guys need to try this. Trust me on this one. And I know every YouTuber says that. This is awesome. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun sharing this method with you. This is something I will be doing every Thanksgiving from now on out. We found our method, but it's time to wrap for today's video. So if you enjoyed this one, please let YouTube know by smashing that thumbs up button, and let me know by hitting subscribe, or consider joining me down below in the channel memberships, and you can be a part of informing future cooks or hang out on my monthly lives. Until next time, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue signing off, and remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.